Hello dear friends, in this video we are going to discuss about the derived properties of powder. First we will discuss about the porosity. Suppose a non-porous powder is placed in a graduated cylinder, then the volume of this non-porous powder in a graduated cylinder is known as a bulk volume. Hence the bulk volume is equals to the true volume of powder plus volume of spaces between the particle, that is the void volume. It is represented as V. Hence V, that is the void volume, is equals to bulk volume minus the true volume. Hence the porosity, that is epsilon, is defined as a ratio of the void volume to the bulk of the packing, is known as porosity, and it is given by equation epsilon is equals to void volume, that is Vb minus Vt divided by bulk volume Vb. It is simplified as 1 minus Vt upon Vb. Generally porosity is expressed in a percentage. Here in this image you can see that this first one, it has a high porosity, that means between the two particle the spaces is larger, and second one, it has a lower porosity, means between the two particle the space which is present is less. Next derived property of powder is packing arrangement. This is of a two types. First one is the closest or rhombohedral, and second one is the most open, loosest or cubic packing arrangement. Here in this image you can see that the particle in a powder are arranged in a rhombohedral pattern. Hence this type of arrangement is known as a rhombohedral packing arrangement. Also the space between the two particles is very less as compared to the cubic packing. Hence it is known as a closest packing. For such type of packing the porosity is 26%. For second type of packing arrangement, the particles which are present in powder are arranged in a cubic pattern. Hence such type of packing arrangement is known as a cubic arrangement. Also the particles which are present in this cubic arrangement have a large intermediate space compared to the rhombohedral packing. Hence it is known as a loosest or most open packing. For such type of arrangement the porosity is 48%. In real, the particles are neither spherical in shape nor uniform in size and have arrangement intermediate between these two ideal packing. Hence the porosity of such type of powder is between the 30 to 50%. Particles with greatly different in size have porosity below the theoretical value, that is the 26%. And for a flocculated or aggregated particles, porosity may be exceed beyond the upper limit, that is the 48%. For crystalline material, porosity can be less than 1%. Next and very important derived property is density of a powder. Universally, this density is determined as weight per unit volume. If the particle have cracks, internal pores and capillary spaces, then it is very difficult to determine the density of that particles. Hence, the density is of a three types: bulk density, true density and granular density. Let's see one by one. First one is the bulk density, and it is calculated by using this formula, that is the weight of a powder divided by bulk volume of that powder. This bulk volume is determined by passing the powder through the sieve number 20 and then introduce this powder into a measuring cylinder of 100 ml. This cylinder is then tapped for 3 times on a wooden board from a height of 1 inch. Then the volume which is represented in a measuring cylinder is noted down, and that volume is nothing but the bulk volume. This bulk volume include the true volume, then volume of spaces between the particle, that is the void, means the space which is present between the two particles, and the volume of cracks within the particle. Here you can see that this is the bulk density determination apparatus. In this cylinder, we can introduce the powder whose density is to be determined. Then after a specified tap, the volume of that powder in a measuring cylinder is determined, and by using the bulk density formula, we can easily determine the bulk density of that powder. Next one is the tap density. This tap density is also referred as a bulk density of a powder after specified compaction process, and usually this compaction process may include the vibration of a container. Similar to the bulk density, this tap density also includes spaces between the particle, that is the void spaces, and volume of cracks within the particles. Actually, bulk density does not reach to the maximum until the container has been dropped or tapped for some 500 times. Hence we determine the tap density, means this tap density is nothing but the bulk density after the 500 times tapped. This three tap method, which is described earlier, is also gives a consistent result in a practical. Before moving to the next density type, first we will understand the difference between the true volume, then granular volume, and the bulk volume. This bulk volume is equals to the true volume of a particle plus intraparticle spaces plus interparticle spaces. In this image you can see that these are the two irregular particles, so these are the true volume. The distance between or the space between these two particles is known as a interparticle spaces. That interparticle spaces means the distance between or the space between the two particles, and the cracks which is present surrounding this single particle, these are the intraparticle spaces. So this true volume plus intraparticle spaces plus interparticle spaces whole, this is known as a bulk volume. Next one is the granule volume. This granular volume is true volume plus intraparticle spaces, means this is, suppose this is a granules, so this is the true volume, and the cracks which is present on this irregular particle is known as a intraparticle spaces, and this is the granular volume. Next one is the true volume. This true volume is the volume of only solid particle, excluding the, means without the intra and interparticle spaces, is known as a true volume. So this true volume is the volume of only solid particle. Second type of density is a true density, and it is calculated by using this formula. True density is equals to the weight of sample whose density is to be determined divided by true volume. The true volume of powder is the volume excluding the void and interparticle pores, is known as a true volume. The true density is can be determined by using two approaches. First one is the for non-porous solid, and second one is the for porous solid. For non-porous solid, true and granular density are identical and can be obtained by displacement of a helium or liquid displacement method. In liquid displacement method, we can use mercury, benzene or water for liquid displacement method. Second, for porous solid, the helium displacement method is used to determine the true density. The helium is selected because helium penetrates into a smallest pore and not absorbed by the material. Hence, helium is used for a porous solid. Let's discuss liquid displacement method for non-porous solid. First, select the solvent in which powder is insoluble. Then take the cyclometer or specific gravity bottle. In this image, you can see the specific gravity bottle. Then note down the weight of empty specific gravity bottle or cyclometer, that is the W1. Then in this bottle, add the powder whose density is to be determined and note down the weight, that is the W2. Then calculate the weight of sample by subtracting the weight of a empty cyclometer from weight of cyclometer plus sample and we get the W3. Then in this bottle add the solvent in which sample is to be insoluble and note down the weight of a cyclometer plus sample plus solvent and that is the W4. Then we find out the weight of liquid displaced by sample and it is calculated by subtracting weight of cyclometer plus sample, that is W2, from weight of a cyclometer plus sample plus solvent, that is W4, and we'll get the W5, that is the weight of liquid displayed by the sample. And after that we'll calculate the true density by using W3 divided by W5, that is the weight of a sample divided by weight of liquid displaced by the sample, and we'll get the true density. Next method for true density determination is helium displacement method for porous solid. In this, helium gas is selected because it penetrates into the smallest pore and it is not absorbed by the material. In this image, you can see the helium cyclometer. It is consists of a sample cell, then wall, which regulate the supply of a helium gas and vacuum. Here is the piston which regulate the function of a valve, and here is the manometer which detect the pressure. First, the dead space of a sample cell is determined by introducing a known quantity of a helium gas. Then known amount of a sample whose density is to be determined is placed into this sample cell, and by applying the vacuum the sample is degassed, means the gas or liquid which is present on a powder is removed by applying the pressure. Then helium gas is introduced into a sample cell, and by applying the gas law, volume of helium surrounding the particles and penetrating into the small cracks and pores is calculated. The difference between the volume of gas required to fill the empty cell and volume of gas required to fill the vessel containing sample gives the true volume. By using this true volume, we can easily calculate the true density. Here is the gas law, that is PV is equals to nRT. In this equation, P is pressure which is detected on manometer, N is moles of helium introduced into the sample cell, R is the gas constant, and T is the absolute temperature. By determining the value of this V, we can easily calculate the true density. Third type of density is granular density and is defined as ratio of mass of granular powder to the granular volume, and it is mathematically expressed as granular density is equals to weight of granular powder divided by granular volume. This granular density is determined by using a liquid displacement method, which is already explained under a true density. In this granular density, mercury is used for determination, The mercury is used because it occupies the spaces between the particles but does not enter the pores or crack within the particle, and also it has a high contact angle, that is 140 degree, and due to its non-wetting characteristics mercury is used for a granular density. The volume of liquid displaced by a given weight of powder is the granular volume, and by knowing the granular volume we can easily determine the granular density. Next derived property of powder is bulkiness or bulk volume. It is inversely proportional to the density, means as the density is increases the bulk volume or bulkiness is decreases. Again this bulkiness is inversely proportional to the particle size. So as the particle size is increases then bulkiness or bulk volume is decreases. If the powder is light it means that it has a low bulk density or large bulk volume, and if the powder is heavy it means that it has a high bulk density and small bulk volume. It is very important in selecting the container for packing of a bulk sample. The lightest or bulkiest type would require a container about 13 times larger than that need for a heaviest variety. Next and very important derived property is a flow property. Generally, powder behave as a non-Newtonian or plastic system. The pharmaceutical powder is classified as free-flowing or cohesive powder. This flow property is generally depend on particle size, density, then electrostatic charge on a particle and adsorb moisture. The good flow property is required for ease and uniform flow from hopper to the dye cavity for a accurate weight and the accurate dose of a drug. To evaluate this flow property, three tests can be carried out, and these are angle of repose, second one is the CAS index, and third one is the Hausner ratio. Let's discuss first evaluation parameter, that is angle of repose, and is defined as maximum angle possible between the surface of pile of the powder and horizontal plane is known as angle of repose. In this image you can see that this is the surface of a pile and this is the horizontal plane, and the angle between these two is known as angle of repose, and it can be calculated by using formula tan theta is equals to h upon r, where h is the height of this pile and r is the radius of this pile, and by putting this value in the equation we can easily calculate the value of theta. The angle of repose is determined by using three different methods. First one is the fixed funnel method, second one is the tilting box method, and third one is the revolving cylinder method. First method for determination of angle of repose is fixed funnel method. In this method, glass funnel is fixed on a burette stand and then approximately 100 gram of powder is transferred into a funnel, keeping the orifice of funnel blocked by the thumb. As the thumb is removed, the powder sample is flow and it forms a pile of powder which has a cone shape. In this image you can see that this is the tip of the funnel, and when the thumb from this tip of funnel is removed, all the powder which is present in the funnel is flow and it form a pile like structure. Then the height of this pile is determined and the radius of this pile is determined. By using this height and radius we can easily calculate the angle of repose. Next is tilting box method. This method is appropriate for fine grade non-cohesive material and particle which have particle size less than 10 millimeter. The material is placed in a transparent box. In this image you can see this is the transparent box, and in that material is placed. It should initially be level and parallel to the base of a box. First all the material is leveled in the box, and after that the box is slowly tilted. The tilting is stopped when material begins to slide in a bulk and the angle of tilt is measured. Then the angle of this tilt is measured. Next is the revolving cylinder method. In this method, the material is placed within a transparent cylinder. Here you can see this is the transparent cylinder and material is placed in this. The cylinder is rotated at a fixed speed. The cylinder is rotated at a fixed speed. Then the angle formed while rotating is used to calculate the angle of repose. Here you can see the angle which is formed while rotating is calculated, and it is used to calculate the angle of repose. This is the table showing the relationship between the flowability and the angle of repose. If the value of angle of repose is 25 to 30, then the flowability of powder is excellent. If the angle of repose is 31 to 35, then flowability is good. If the angle of repose is 36 to 40, then flowability is fair. Means as the angle of repose is increased, then flowability is decreases. This flowability is decreases means at the angle of repose more than 66, the flowability is very poor. Flow property of powder can be evaluated by using Cass index and Hausner ratio. This Cass index is also known as compressibility index and is the ability of powder to decrease the volume under pressure. Means when we performing a tableting action, then the ability of that powder to decrease the volume after applying the pressure is known as Cass index, and it is calculated by using tap density minus bulk density divided by tap density into 100. Then Hausner ratio, it is calculated by using tap density and bulk density. The Hausner ratio is very important in case of a dose uniformity. The relationship between the Cass index, then the flowability of powder and Hausner ratio is given in this chart. If the value of Cass index is increases, then the flow of that powder is decreases, means flow characteristics is decreases. If the Cass index is less than 10, then the flow of powder is excellent. But as we increase the Cass index, then the type of flow or the flow property is decreases. Similarly with the Hausner ratio, for a excellent flow property, the Cass index, the Hausner ratio should be 1 to 1.11, and if the Hausner ratio is goes on increasing, then the flowability of that powder is decreases. The flow property of powder can be improved by converting the powder into a granules of a spherical shape, then by choosing a granules with a optimum size, that is 400 to 800 micrometer, by adding a fine around 15% in a powder blend, and by adding a sufficient quantity of lubricant and glidant into the powder. We can improve the flow property by this way. Next one is the factors affecting on flow property of powder. First factor is the particle size. Smaller particles have a poor flow property, and it is due to the cohesion of particle by van der Waals forces or electrostatic and surface tension forces. As we increase the particle size, then flow property is also increase, but beyond the certain limit, flow property is decreases as the particle size is increases. Hence appropriate blend of coarse and fine particle improve the flow, and this is due because of the fine get adsorbed on the surface of a larger particle and reduce the friction. Next one is the nature of particle. If the particle surface is smooth, then it has a good flow property, and if the surface of particle is rough, then it has a poor flow property. If the particle have high density and low porosity, that has a good flow property. When the particles are flat and elongated, they are packed loosely and give a high porosity. This high porosity means the low flow property or a poor flow property. Generation of charge due to friction between the particle gives a cohesion or a cohesive forces, and due to these cohesive forces the flow property is decreases. Next factor is the moisture content. Higher the moisture content in powder, then greater is the cohesion and adhesion, and due to this poor is the flow property of that powder. I hope you understand this video lecture. If any query, you can message me. Thank you.